This Perp back with another video, and this is my part 2 of I finally caught up with One Piece. And for those that don't know, if you haven't seen my part 1 video, go check that out. I caught up with One Piece in 46 days. Yes, you heard that correctly, 46 days. And I'm just gonna do my best to kind of give you my thoughts on the series as a whole. So I decided to kind of break it up in parts. And I kind of want to address some things before we get started in this video, because I definitely glossed over some things in part 1. That's why we got a part 2, so we can kind of cover certain things. So not going to go super in depth with certain things. Just want to kind of go through some of the highlights or things that kind of stuck out to me. So to address certain things, like going into the time skip, with everything with Luffy and everything that happened at Sabayoti and with the Admirals and the Kumas just wiping out the Straw Hats, what it seemed like Luffy being completely separated from his team, his crew, and him having to form unlikely alliances with other pirates, and also aligning himself with, Whitebeard to go against the Marines in Marineford, and dealing with Ace's death, him pretty much kind of going away for 2 years and sending out a message to the other Straw Hats saying, just kind of disappear for a while, come back, do y'all training, because everybody kind of was separated. And damn, did everybody definitely get powerful after this time skip. And I like how they introduce the worst generation, which is like the next generation of pirates after, Whitebeard and everything else, and them really focusing on that. But I also like the power-ups, the introduction of Haki, which we saw glimpses of this pre-time skip, but we didn't know exactly what it was at the moment. But there's 3 types of Haki. There's armament Haki, there is observation Haki. You can kind of look at that as like an OP version of some spider sense. If you're able to kind of perfect that, you could kind of peek into the future a bit. And then we got the Conqueror's Haki, which we seen that with Shanks when he approached Whitebeard on his ship, and a bunch of Whitebeard's crew just got knocked the fuck out just off of his Conqueror's Haki. And I'm pretty sure we saw it earlier, because I went back and watched the series from the beginning, because I wanted to watch the sub, and I'm pretty sure he used it on that Sea King. But like I said, everybody really is glowed up right now, especially Luffy, him tapping into Gear 4 against Doflamingo. We'll talk about that in the Gear 4 Snakeman, which was my favorite out of the 2, when he's fighting Katakuri, where he's trying to really perfect his observation Haki. But starting off with some of probably the weaker parts, some of my gripes or things that really annoyed me, or what I wasn't too big of a fan of, is Fishman Island. That arc was very slow. Yes, it looked really dope, you know what I'm saying, and it plays into something later on in the series. It just wasn't my favorite. But then we get into like Punk Hazard, which I don't have an issue with Punk Hazard, except for one character, and that is Caesar. This is Caesar. He's like this mad scientist guy, uses poison and whatnot, has created these artificial devil fruits that kind of play a huge part in the post-time skip stuff, going into Doflamingo and then going into Kaido. Just a straight up noxious character that I don't think they needed to have that much of his involvement. It's just his laugh is just so fucking annoying, and it's damn near unbearable. I think that's the most annoying thing when I look at One Piece as a whole is just Caesar's character is just fucking atrocious. But everything with Law and how he plays a big pivotal role in Punk Hazard going into Dressrosa was really dope. And Dressrosa is one of the longer arcs in One Piece, and I see a lot of people having some controversial takes saying it's like kind of drags, but I fully was invested with this arc with Doflamingo and getting more backstory on Kid and Corazon, and Corazon being Doflamingo's brother, and just Doflamingo's backstory of him being a celestial dragon and his father wanting them to just live a normal life with the common folk, and he wasn't with that. You know, he thinks that these people are below me, and it was fantastic. It was a fantastic arc, and Doflamingo is definitely one of my favorite villains out of One Piece. It's very menacing, and you see why he has so much power. And I would say he's probably the strongest out of the warlords, or at least has the most power, and he's connected to Kaido, and just that whole fight between him and Luffy was really dope. Everybody has really dope moments in here, especially like Zoro and whatnot. I really like Dressrosa, and just that whole backstory with Law and stuff. It was very, very emotional. Then, you know, also a character that gets reintroduced into Dressrosa that we kind of see hints of is Sabo, which that is Luffy's brother. And it is crazy how Ace's death just plays a huge part in all these other arcs and where he's been, and you know, just the reveals that we're getting of who Luffy's father is being Dragon, and who Ace's father is being Goldie Roger, and just seeing Sabo being like Dragon's right-hand man, and him wanting to kind of get the flame fruit. And Sabo was really dope. I want to see more of his character down the line, and to see what they're going to do with this character in the future. But I really liked how they tied that in. But then we get into the real shit here with the Four Emperors arc, and I really love this. I really love this, and the Four Emperors being Kaido, Blackbeard, Big Mom, and Shanks, for specific reasons and why they are the emperors of the seas, and seeing all these different bounties and stuff and how high their bounty is. I think like Kaido's was like 4 billion, and I think like Big Mom's was like 3 or 4 or something like that. But Big Mom was definitely one of my favorite emperors that they've showed off. That we go to this whole cake island and it's all desserts, and that's another thing I like about One Piece, that every island that they go to has a specific theme to it. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's something based off of like Themyscira, like with the Amazon lilies where it's all females, or Fisherman Island where it's kind of like a City of Atlantis, Aquaman, Little Mermaid type of vibes. Like, it's just, there's all these different vibes whenever you go to these different islands. Back to Big Mom though, you just see how insanely OP she is. She'll have these sweet cravings that just makes her go insane, and how powerful her abilities are, where she can like literally take somebody's like life force. It's fucking crazy, bro. She's absolutely psychotic, but I like even her backstory, her just being kind of abandoned, and you know, her thinking that she's doing the right thing by, you know, wanting to eliminate like racism, anything like that, by any means necessary. But my favorite part of Whole Cake is the whole Sanji and Pudding, and also the introduction to his family and why he disowned his family, and getting more backstory on how him and Zeph became so close, this was some of the best moments to me and made me really like Sanji's character even more. And just seeing him and Luffy kind of going at it, and even seeing how loyal Luffy is to his own crews, that he was staying in one spot. He's not coming back, and he was like starving himself because he was doing everything he could to get Sanji back. But Sanji was kind of put into this situation by force, and just seeing how terrible his family has treated him, and for him to do what he still ended up doing, was fucking phenomenal. The only one that really liked him is his sister, and just a heartbreaking kind of story with Sanji just made me like his character even more. Then you get the Zou arc that goes into Wano, which Wano is just completely insane. After Luffy pretty much like defeats Doflamingo and Dressrosa, you know, he's making a lot of enemies with like Big Mom, and also being on Kaido's radar, and Kaido and him just taking over this whole country of Wano, why Wano is cut off from the rest of the world. We get introduced to Odin, a really dope character. Seeing Goldie Roger and fucking a young Whitebeard clashing and their crews fighting for like 3 days. So much to unpack, going from like Whole Cake Zou to Wano is just fucking brilliant, and just so many different story beats, and getting introduced to these 5 guys, the 5 elders, and they're obviously some of the most powerful characters, and we still don't know much about them, but you know, they're kind of pretty much pulling the strings. But they're also looking for the Gum Gum Fruit, or been looking for the Gum Gum Fruit, and why it's so powerful. And we're kind of getting more backstory on exactly what these devil fruits are. We get introduced to this shadowy figure, which this might be the very end boss for Luffy. He's at the top of the chain, you know what I'm saying? Which is so fascinating to me. Doesn't say a word, but you just kind of see glimpses of him, and you know, Luffy is just really making moves out here. And also, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Blackbeard's character, because he is becoming very powerful, with him being able to harness 2 devil fruits at the same time. And I'm curious to see if his whole crew is kind of doing that, because it seems like they're just kind of snatching people's abilities and just growing in strength, growing in power, and you know, crushing it. And I can't wait to see what he does in the final arc. Now let's get into the creme de la creme, the reveal of Gear 5. This was something special, especially if you've watched all of One Piece. If you just watched that episode, you're probably not going to understand how dope that transformation is, because what I like about One Piece and how they've handled the transformations with Luffy, they don't oversaturate it. You know what I'm saying? Everything's pretty well spaced out. It took 1,000+ episodes to get to this, and to find out that his devil fruit is actually the sun god Nika, and that just is so fascinating to me. And it just makes sense because of Luffy's personality that he would take on these traits of Joy Boy, and them hinting at history kind of repeating itself, or Luffy's going one way. We also get introduced to a character named Rocks too, like he was like the strongest in the world, where he wasn't really trying to be king of the pirates, so to speak. And that stuff is going to be really interesting going into the final arc, as they explain a little bit more on that. And it seems that Luffy's kind of going the Goldie Rogers route, and Blackbeard's going Rox's route. It's just really dope, man. It's just So many thoughts, so much stuff to kind of break down, but that's just kind of how I feel about the post time skip. Which is better? I don't know. There's a lot of things I like in the post time skip, as far as how they handle the Four Emperors, the worst generation stuff. But I also like the pre-time skip stuff, where they really focus a lot on the Straw Hats, where post-time skip, most of the Straw Hats kind of take a back seat, besides like Zoro. Zoro, fantastic. He absolutely shows up in such a big way in Wano, where they're all fighting against Big Mom and Kaido. Big Mom and Kaido like form this huge ass blast where everybody's just like looking at their shock, like Kid and Law and Luffy are just like, yo, we don't know how to do, and he takes that shit full force. That was such a badass moment, and his whole fight with King is definitely going to go down in the anime history books forever. Zoro has definitely become one of my favorite characters, because I was like, I like Sanji after the whole cake, but then with Zoro and Wano, it's like not even a debate anymore. He just continuously is finding his own way and his own path to becoming strong, and he's doing all this without a devil fruit, mind you, which is fucking insane. Overall, I've really fallen in love with this series called One Piece. I truly believe there's not another show that has a world that is so vast and so large in scale. Their characters, the backstories that they kind of go through, and I'm so ready for the final arc. I might have to do like a part 3 eventually, which will be so down the line whenever they get around to the final arc, which this whole Wano and Kaido fight is coming to an end very shortly, so we're probably not going to have to wait that long. But like I said, One Piece isn't going to end anytime soon, even with this final arc being started in the manga. It's going to take a while, and I think over time, even after the series ends, it's just going to gain more and more popularity. You see it on Netflix now, and I wanted to get this part out before the Netflix series starts, but that's going to be very challenging. I'm going to save my thoughts for when the series drops, and I'm going to have my review up. But man, I had such a blast with this show. I wish more and more people will give it a try. Stop using the excuse, oh, it's too long, this, that, and the third. Hey, I caught up in 46 days. I don't know what else other people's excuses are. I don't regret it, and I want to dive more into it, because I still want to kind of get the gist of the different types of devil fruits, like the parameciums and the all the different types, the Zols, all that stuff. I'm still kind of green on, but as I rewatch it, it's really brilliant, especially when you do a kind of a rewatch and you kind of see certain things being foreshadowed. But yeah, this is just my part 2. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comments below, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.